Functional Operator Podcast. This episode is brought to you by Nautilus AI Solutions, which is actually us. We work with performance and wellness-based businesses to give them the systems and infrastructure they actually need to grow without losing what makes them great. I'm your host, Noah Tomes. On this show, we're going to be exploring how functional medicine practices and performance-based wellness businesses scale through better systems, operations, and intelligent use of technology. Every episode is built around one thing, and it's what's actually working for real operators in the field right now and how you can sometimes apply it. Today, I'm joined by David, founder of Bodyworks DW, a two-studio clinical massage practice in New York City built on proprietary method David created. Refined over nearly 2 decades, and he now teaches it to other people as well, licensed therapists across the country. So he didn't just build a practice, he built the method, trained every person who delivers it, and turned the whole operation into a continuing education hub for therapists nationally. So this episode is actually what it takes to scale a method-driven wellness business without losing the thing that made it work in the first place. So David, before I say too much, I would love for you to give the audience just, a quick snapshot of who you serve, what you do, maybe what your day-to-day looks like a little bit right now.
Sure. So I'm a New York State licensed massage therapist, have been for almost 20 years now. I also have a bunch of movement background that sort of led into that being what I chose as a profession. And I deal with we don't do like spa massage. We're all pain management and what I would call sort of hyper niche medical massage. Massage for
very
joint
diagnostic
replacement recovery, for injury recovery, for postural realignment, long-term chronic pain, TMJ, migraines, all sorts of different things. But that's certainly what I'm known for and what I train people to work on. And so, it's funny because I really resisted this entire time. I've always resisted the idea of like naming my style and giving it like a brand, if you will.
Yep.
And this branding and website design outfit that we hired last year called Studio Scaler to completely redesign our website, which was one of the best moves we ever made in our whole
That's awesome.
history of a practice. And I'll talk more about what that actually accomplished and how and why, because it's not just about a new website. There's a lot of pieces to that. But they were the one who coined the DW method, and I was like, oh no, we've named it now, But there is a thing to it, and it's not at all the thing that most therapists think it would be, which is like some collection of special techniques, but it's actually like a way of thinking about how to apply what you already know.
Nice. So a good mental framework.
Results. Yep. Yeah. Exactly. And it's like more about how we approach like listening to clients and doing intake and finding out what's wrong with them, and then treatment planning, and then thinking of a long-term plan for the client. And that's really more like what I think makes me more unique as a practitioner than like the specific like press here and do this way. I mean, let's put it this way, I probably have some weirdo, interesting, unique ways of working as well, but I also say that like honestly, the how doesn't matter anywhere near as the what. It's like what you're trying to accomplish and really clarifying that goal between you and your client.
Got you. So it was more of putting that, I guess I would say, diagnostic kind of framework in place to really deep dive and understand what a particular client is coming to you and how you can really help them at the end of the day. I love that.
Yeah. And then there's a zillion little like tips and tricks and how you can better elicit the information that then better allows you to treat. Would
you say that's the approach that kind of would differentiate you from a typical, maybe massage studio or anything like that? Or would there be anything that goes a little deeper? I'd say maybe that diagnostic approach.
Well, that's certainly the thing that massively distinguishes us. And in fact, if you took our website and compared it to any of our big competitors, anywhere, that is the big distinction, is that we're no longer playing in the sandbox of trying to market certainly not spa massage, but even medical massage as the thing. What we're actually talking about is the treatment plan to get your long-term results, and that just making that the thing that we're marketing. We're not marketing you getting a massage. We're marketing you coming in and getting an actual assessment and then a plan, and then that will actually get you long-term pain relief, right? Like, and that is pretty differentiated in the market. And that,
Sure.
again, with the new website build, I and you and I chatted about this. Like, I had my money bet on us owning SEO locally in
Hmm.
6 to 12 months with the new website, and it actually took about 6 to 12 weeks. It
Yep.
was just mind-boggling how quickly Google just ate it up and was like, "Ooh, very clear, super
Yep.
clear ideas and very clear differentiation and very clear, what works and what doesn't work and when you massages the thing and when it isn't. Sure, we'll just push you right to the front." And that was pretty, like, whoa, that did not take anywhere near as much time as I thought
Well,
it
it's
would.
super eye-opening, especially when you're maybe on the sidelines beforehand and you're kind of trying to weigh out the pros and the cons and see if this is really something you should do. You're kind of hesitant, whatever it could be, I guess. And then you finally take that risk, that step, and you realize, wow, this really wasn't that scary at the end of the day. It's
Yeah.
I don't know. It just it's very eye-opening in my experience. Because yeah, you really don't know what anything will do until you give it a shot. I mean, that's business at the end of the day, am I right? You gotta mess
Yep.
around. It's trial and error. You gotta find what works, and you also gotta find what works specifically for you. Because something could work for
Hmm.
somebody else, like somebody else could have done SEO, or you could have done SEO, absolutely crushed it, and I had a very similar practice, ran SEO, and
Hmm.
so it's all
Yeah.
about you just gotta trial and error and just walk through until
Which
you
is
find something that works.
actually the DW method for working with clients. Is
Okay.
literally like, I think I know what might help you, but I'm totally open to the fact that it absolutely didn't. And
Yep.
therefore, I must
So
completely change
it's
my
just honest,
hypothesis.
raw, and transparent, solutions is what it sounds like to me.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
that's awesome. That's awesome. So I mean, I had mentioned in the beginning, obviously you're seeing clients, you're training your team, you have the education platform as well, amongst whatever other things you have to do. So I'm curious, maybe either what a real week looks like for you, maybe what a
Mm,
real day looks like for you. What's the workload look like for somebody who runs an
mm.
operation like this?
Well, mine is, I don't know, I have no idea if mine is normal because I'm a
nothing's
workaholic, but
nothing's normal.
nothing's normal. But for me, I still see clients. I see clients 3 days a week, and I typically will do around 15 to 18 sessions a week with clients. So I'm still seeing clients Thursdays, Saturdays, Sundays, 2 of the days in one location, another day in the other location. Um, and I definitely, because I still love the work. Like,
Hmm.
you and I talked about how we both love Alex Hermosi. One of his questions he always asks is, "Are you looking to build this business to own it or to sell it?" And I'm like, I
Hmm.
would never. I could see myself working with clients until they nail me in the coffin, because
Sure.
95, if I'm still around, it might only be 1 day a week, and it might be
Yeah.
$10,000 to see me,
Well,
but
while I have it on the top of the brain as well, just remember you could always exit. And actually, I think a lot of people prefer this as well, especially for a practice built like yours,
Mm,
because you are kind of the brains of the operation. A lot of people love to have the owner still within the practice. Obviously, it doesn't make
yeah.
as much sense because you're selling, you're cashing out, and then you got to stay at the business for another 5 years, seeing clients and all that. But it could be a possibility,
Yeah.
if all the numbers make sense down the road. Because I'm sure, I mean, I think anybody at the end of the day, you're going to get tired of work eventually. You're going to want to exit for the work that you've built. So why not have it as an option at least?
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And you know what? You're reminding me of something I completely forgot, which is like, at the end of the day, the whole point of me being an operator and building a business was so that I could do the work I love to do and not think about money anymore. I
A
don't
hundred
really have
percent.
any major designs on billions, certainly, and
Yep.
certain, and millions. I mean, honestly, these days, millions is sadly the floor of feeling comfortable in
Unfortunately.
America. But but hundreds of millions, no, I could care. Like, that's too much work,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
enough to be very comfortable, have some nice things, have some vacations, around the world when I'm too stressed out, and like, but then continue to do the work that I love, because the body work itself is still
It's
just
passion.
fascinating, and
Sure.
I'm very much still creatively, like, coming up with stuff all the time.
I was just about to say, I'm sure you still learn so much. Like we were saying earlier, like once you stop learning, like what are you doing? So I'm
Hmm.
sure being in the practice as well, there's still things that pop up that you didn't know, like you didn't even expect that you would run into as issues. And they just keep
Yeah.
popping up and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes it's a little, a little bit of a pain in the ass. You're like, when is this going to stop? But then sometimes it's kind of exhilarating. You get a little bit of, what am I saying? Originality, I guess,
Yeah.
within your day. You get to interrupt the pattern a little
Well, and
bit
some
more.
challenge, right? Like, and
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
funny that you're asking, we're talking about this week, because this week, for some reason, just the stars aligned, and I am not somebody who believes in fate, but, whatever. This week, I've had like 5 instances of people coming in with some condition I've never heard of before. And it
Really?
doesn't happen that often to me. It happens often enough, and I'm very
Uh-huh.
comfortable with oh, interesting, tell me how to spell that, and Googling it right in front of them and being like, am I
Hmm.
even allowed to work with you today? Like, let me double check and make sure that I have no contraindications, which is the medical term for you can't do the work, right? And most of the time there's zero. But yeah, this week alone I had somebody come in with a condition called strabismus that I'd never heard of before, that I had to look up. It's an eye muscle problem. Somebody else just yesterday was like, we were talking about the fact that he's got some hip problems, and he was like, oh yeah, I had 2 inguinal hernias, one at 4 and one at 6. And I was like, that's super
What?
duper young. And he was like,
Yeah.
oh, well, I forgot to tell you I was premature by 10 weeks. I was
Okay.
like,
There you go.
that I probably have clients that are, but this is the first client who directly told me that that was something, and I was like,
Yeah.
fascinating,
Yeah.
And so that's been my whole week, is like people walking in with these things, and I'm like, huh, that's a new one, but I actually love that.
Oh, I bet. I bet. It keeps you on your toes. You got to go back.
Yeah.
You got to go back in the lab a little bit and
Hmm.
understand a little bit more. It keeps you fresh. I like it. I absolutely like it. But yeah, maybe to dive a little bit more into the business side of stuff, because it's
Hmm.
funny. I talk to a lot of different operators from this kind of space, so the practices kind of vary a little bit, but they're still somewhat reciprocal. And I'd say, you know, not to get off track, but I love having these conversations because success leaves clues. And even though we're talking about a wellness practice right now, there could be so many insights that could be reciprocated to other industries. Like business is business at the end of the day. But I'm curious, most places hit a ceiling around like 2 to 4 therapists. That's where quality
Hmm.
starts to feel kind of tied to one person. So I'm just
Hmm.
curious, in your experience, what typically will cause, a ceiling like that?
Well, that's a really interesting question, because I have my own solution to that and what worked for us, which
Hmm.
I'm going to share in a
Well,
minute. But
let's
I'm
hear.
also thinking,
Okay, got it. Yep,
I'm
yep.
just thinking about some of my competitors that I know that
Beautiful.
don't have this solution in place. And the side solution was actually to lower the bar of the offer,
Hmm.
right? And so it's like so just to get clear on what that means here in
You're
this
saying from
specific
a
thing.
perspectives, like what they need, like criteria wise, to I guess
Hmm.
qualify to be a prospective client.
Both. So there's the therapist side. You asked about, like, so people sealing out at 2 to 4 therapists, and then quality goes down because
Hmm.
you're the guy who came up with that everybody wants to go to. And that is a thing I struggled with for years. And I think I made the same mistake I'm about to talk about, which is that you just guarantee lower quality, right?
Hmm.
Like, and I think that's actually the thing, and that's the big epiphany I had last year, which is like, I'm playing in the same game everybody else is right now, which is selling massage, and maybe it's slightly differentiated from spa. It's deep tissue, it's sports, it's medical, but everybody's also still playing in that game, and there's like a low bar that everybody's basically guaranteeing, which is somebody has a New York State license and can, isn't
Hmm.
terrible at this, but isn't. And then, like, what we did last year was say, no, this is actually the bar up here. We're doing very niche, very trained, very experienced, high level medical massage you absolutely need. And it had me realize, well, actually, we're pricing ourselves for the other bar. We need to price ourselves premium, because that's what we are. And the only way to guarantee that level was two things. One, we actually like raised our hiring criteria significantly. And two, I built the whole continuing education program, and that happened
Hmm.
first. So the continuing education program was actually built in response to the problem of hiring people who were really talented but not experienced,
Hmm.
and trying to get them. to learn faster, which did work. I would be able to take real prodigies fresh out of school and have them feel like they had been doing the work for 7 or 8 years
Hmm.
within 6 months, let's say, but just
That's awesome.
like first principles and rethinking, because there isn't really a graduate school for our kind of profession, unfortunately. And so
Hmm.
my original solution was basically to create a graduate level program, and which has its ups and downs, right? Like then the newest add-on solution to that, because it's not like we got rid of that, was then to also say, and now we're getting rid of our lowest tier of people on our staff.
Hmm.
Not that we fired anybody. We basically like figured out who was able to come up to the next tier and stopped hiring down here. So we went from we'll hire a really talented fresh graduate to we'll only hire people with 5+ years experience.
Got it. Got it.
And
So it
that
was,
has really upped the quality.
got it. So singling out who you're targeting,
Hmm.
hiring
Yep.
hiring the right people, and then I'm sure using that internal training, I'm sure helped you a lot as well, because I'm sure your practitioners
Yeah.
are trained off of that material.
Very much so. Yeah. Yeah. Either
Okay.
they are trained off of it by me personally, for the people who maybe have like less
Or
than
another
8 years
industry
of
leader or
experience,
whoever it could be.
or like we just hired somebody who's like, you know, 25 years in the field and used to teach it
Hmm.
and still teaches at the number one school in the country for what we do. So it's, and just
That's
doesn't
awesome.
like running a business himself. So he's like, just
Sure.
like, oh, you guys are doing the right thing. I'll work for you, so.
Sweet. That is awesome. So how many therapist practitioners, I don't know how
Mhm.
you refer to them, do you have within the practice right now?
Including me right now, we have 20.
Okay.
And we're still hiring. We
Hmm.
still are, we're nowhere near capacity. Our Because of all the work that we did on the website and the remodeling and the going after the specific avatar and all that stuff that
Hmm.
we currently are nowhere near demand constrained, to use Alex Hermosi's terms. We are still very much supply constrained, meaning like I could
Okay.
probably hire another 4 to 6 therapists and book them solid. Like we've hired 6 therapists since January, and for the people watching this 6 months from now, it is now April. So in 3 months, one quarter, we've hired 6 new therapists, and every single one of them has been booked an average of 87%, and most fully booked the day they walk in the door, which is
Wow.
something that nobody in our industry has built and can guarantee usually.
So you need
So
more therapists.
we need more therapists. Yes. Hi, New
Yeah.
York State licensed therapists who really want to do clinical work, who have 5 years plus experience. Please find our link on the website and apply to work with us.
There you go. You got your in. You got it.
Yep.
That is awesome. Well, yeah, that's a good problem to have, though. I would say that much. I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that would wish to have those problems, no doubt.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
20 team members, online trainings, still seeing clients, however many other things you
Right.
got,
Your
you got
original
right.
question.
You got running with it. Oh no, I mean I'll move on to a different one, but I'm
No, 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 no. There's more to
more.
fill in there. So there's at
Is
least a
there?
couple days of meetings. Well, there's one day of meetings, Tuesdays, where I meet with my marketing team, which is we have an in-house videographer that we hired a year ago. Um, and so there's a lot of pieces of that where if we're talking to business owners, one of the things, especially in my field, but in a lot of fields, is like I think the one thing that's worked for me in all of my thing is the willingness to invest in something that doesn't make me money right away.
Sure.
And a
Yes.
lot of
Yes.
people really struggle with that, right? They like
Yeah.
my in-house videographer who has worked for us for a year, that has probably made a year and a half at this point, has probably cost me, 60 grand of payroll and, plus, and probably more like close to 80 at this point. Our YouTube channel currently monetizes at $2,400 a year,
Hmm.
right? Is that all the money he's made for us? No, because he's helped us build assets that tie into the entire machine, and that
Sure.
that works. but I would say, in essence, it's going to be a little while before we're able to say purely that that videographer pays for himself,
Sure.
but it's a piece of the whole puzzle that has then allowed us to grow in ways that are not happening yet, but absolutely could be like really potential, revenue streams,
Yeah.
so
I love
be willing to
the
invest,
foresight.
yeah. And it was partly the investment side and partly that I was doing it all myself. And as an
Sure.
operator,
You
like
can
you
only
just
do so
have to,
much.
at a certain point, you have to realize when you're the bottleneck and solve it, even though it's not making you money right away,
Hmm.
because it will.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
100%. And it's funny you said content as well, because I love content. There's so many different ways to do it, but I look at it as this, generation's, it's digital real estate. You can
Mhm.
make a YouTube video for, say, like maybe you had a YouTube video about realigning your posture or something like that. And,
Mhm.
maybe people keep getting fatter and fatter for 10 more years, and somebody comes back 10 years later and now it's got 3 million views because everybody's trying to fix your posture, and you
Yeah, right.
differentiated yourself, solved specific problems, then put those solutions out there. And now maybe it's 10 years later and you're making
Yeah.
another $2,000 a month off that video just because. So there's so many different, like, I try and wrap my head around it all the time, but there is almost too many possibilities to comprehend nowadays. That's why you just got to do everything in your power.
Well, I'm going to push back on that last statement because you're absolutely right. I'm literally trying to teach my managers this concept that, and this is something, one of my favorite, dearest clients, I won't use his name for confidentiality reasons, but this guy
Hmm.
runs a college. I won't even say which one because I would give away his name. And he has 600 employees. And I remember
Hmm.
this clear as a day, like a day when he sort of took me under his wing, even though he was my client. So I'm helping him fix his neck pain and back pain, and we're just chatting, and he's one of these teacher type people who always wants to like help out the people around him. So he heard me talk, he asked about the business, heard my struggles, and he said something to me that I'll never forget, which is like, "Oh, I see what your issue is. You've reached the point where there's always more to do than you can ever do. And you need to build a system to prioritize what is the most important thing. And if you don't build that, you will
100%.
just completely spin in circles, right?" And I'm trying to teach my managers this idea that, like, look, you might think to come to me and ask me, like, what do I do, what do I do, what do I do, and I'm like, I have 100,000 things I could be doing today that would improve my bottom line for the business or my top line, like.
Hmm.
And so half, like a quarter of my time is spent just sifting through the possibilities and having to pick one.
Yep.
And if you just do everything, forget it, you're just exhausted. And so Hormozy, we both love Alex Hormozy. He really talks about like this idea that like you figure out what the top constraint is and you put everything against it, and if everything else is on fire and piles around you, you just let it burn. And-
Yeah. There was an interesting approach I had heard, when you were talking about decision making for your team, at least. There was two different, I guess, approaches I had heard. There's obviously like the old time one, which is like, what would you do if I wasn't there, kind of thing, and
yeah.
have them run through that. But there was also another. Let me see if I can recite it perfectly because I haven't used this yet, but I
Hmm.
loved the idea. I think it was the 1-3-1 method, where
Oh
you
yeah.
ask them. They have one problem, they bring you three solutions and tell you the one that they like the most. And typically, the one that they
Hmm.
like the most is the right answer, anyways. So it
Yeah.
begins to build confidence within your team to know that
Hmm.
they are also making the right aligned decisions for the practice.
I like that one because I was like, one of my epiphanies this week about the way that the team was working and structured, and the person who had trained them before they moved up, who now is no longer with us, was that they they haven't absorbed the idea that like the action that you choose may not actually produce the results you think it will,
Hmm.
and often doesn't. And so they
Which is why you
haven't
need that trial and
quite,
error, like we were even mentioning before.
yeah,
Yep.
they haven't quite learned. So they keep looking to me to make those analyses and then solve. And it's like I have to teach them, and I'm going to take it on me as I'm responsible for this, not them.
Of
It's like
course.
I need to teach them the idea that you need to build in your own analysis, your
Hmm.
own clear results that you're looking for. For instance, result could be, the therapist's, you know, get X percentage of new clients into our package programs,
Sure.
right? Like, and so that's the result, and then the how might be that they like, well, we'll make an announcement sending them the training doc on that. I'm like, well, that's a good start. That
Hmm.
might produce some movement towards the goal. But I mean, when they proposed that, I was like, I can tell you that's not going to solve the problem. Go ahead
Hmm.
and try, like, but that's not going to be enough. You're going to get some movement for a day or two or a week or two, and then it's going to get lost. And so we need to figure out how to reinforce this behavior that we want, which is
For
like
sure.
actually including this conversation each and every time. But they haven't quite gotten that their declared action isn't the completion of the project. They're like, well, but we did the action. I'm like, great, good job.
Hmm.
But also, did you actually get to the goal yet? Did you forget what the goal was?
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Let's not do that. Like,
Yeah, it's a tricky one, and it changes person to
yeah,
person as well. But I love that 131 method because it allows the therapist to enhance those creative, critical thinking
yeah,
skills. They
totally.
still, and it's a reciprocal. It effectively communicates both sides because you get to see how they're thinking and what their thought process is, but then you also get to give them feedback on whatever it was. So
Hmm.
you guys you come at an answer, together.
Yeah, I love that, and I actually am gonna start using that because I've
Sweet. Yeah.
heard
Let me
that,
know
but
how it
not
works.
not recently. But what I love about it is the idea that, like, instead of trying to come up with the perfect solution,
Mhm.
you have to come up with three.
Yeah.
And there will be a better one out of the three, or there
Hmm.
might not be. They might all
Hmm.
be completely viable and equally potential, and you don't know. And I'm literally going to be like, I don't know, flip a coin, don't, or
Hmm.
roll a dice. Like, I
Yep.
don't care.
Have fun with
Pick
it.
one and
Yeah.
do it, and then see what happens. And if it
Yep.
doesn't work, then pick another one. But
Yeah.
yeah, I love that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. Let me know how it works for you. I'm super curious
Hmm.
because, like I said, I haven't personally tested it. I've kind of like slightly, but not on like a real scale level for the most part.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess get back on track really quick. Two locations running. What
Hmm.
is kind of feeling most operationally complex right now?
Good question.
Because you have the volume,
Yeah.
you have the demand, but what within the system, what within the the processes going through the motions is falling behind.
Well, it is the thing that we're talking about
Sure.
hiring on to solve right now, which is that
Hmm.
right now our managers are feeling a little overwhelmed because they transitioned up from front desk duties to assistant manager to manager. They're
Okay.
still covering the phones once in a while.
Hmm.
And this is where I really need to teach them a different way of thinking as well, because they're stuck on this old idea that at some point, years, probably 5 years ago, I have no idea, I made some claim like we need to answer every phone call, right? Because at the time, that probably was actually true, right? Like
Hmm.
that was the way to make sure that we were getting bookings, right?
Hmm.
However, like that's no longer true. Like actually, we could probably let
Especially since
70 to
setting up the
80%
website
of
and
the
whatnot.
calls go to voicemail, let them get a text back and go over text or email us, or just get the voicemail that tells them you can solve your problems this way by booking online. Text us if you really, really need to talk to us, whatever and then just not answer the phone, right? But they're still stuck in this old thing, and they're trying to be like, we're so overwhelmed we can't do that thing anymore. And they're proposing all these solutions of let's hire an assistant manager or a front desk lead, which I still think is a good idea for different reasons than they do.
Hmm.
But I'm also like, have you considered that maybe the thing that you're trying to solve isn't really necessary anymore?
Sure. Well, yeah, the
You know,
the
like,
the framework because you were talking about it earlier, kind of. I think it was more on the decision making process, but when it comes to what decisions to make, I guess, or what to focus on, you got to make sure that everybody is focusing on the most driving factors. I call them the bottlenecks. So,
yep.
at least when I'm going to do my work, I always highlight what are my top two things that are going to drive the business forward. They're going to generate
Hmm.
revenue. They're going to give me a deliverable. They're going to give me something real, tangible that's actually going to give progress to the business. Focus on the top two bottlenecks first, and then there's always going to be enough work to do. focus on
Yeah.
those top two, then you at least know I made progress within the business. I drove it forward. I did a good thing. Then, you could get back to all that other stuff. But yeah, it's definitely always a pain when you're running around from one thing to another. Like you have somebody who maybe specializes as a therapist, but maybe they have to answer phone calls and all this kind of stuff. And it
Right.
just maybe throws you off of your rhythm a little bit.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm curious
Well,
in hearing a little bit more about that for sure.
totally. Just for clarity, like none of our therapists do admin duties. I'm actually morally
Hmm.
opposed to that. Like we have sometimes they ask, "Oh, is there work we can do?" And I'm like, "No, we wouldn't be able to pay you what we pay you as a therapist, nor should you want that."
Hmm.
If you're feeling like you want more work, and thankfully now that we've really solved the demand side of the problem, like I haven't heard that question from anybody in a long time, but we used to because we didn't have enough demand to meet supply sometimes,
Yeah.
and so I coming back to your question, like well, a couple of questions ago, the the operational stickiness for right now, I think, is really on like customer service and what does that even mean in our new model, right? And I don't know that our methods and tactics have been updated to meet our new avatar, our new model, right? Like they're not so misaligned that there's massive problems, but like, even this email that before we even came out, I was talking about getting from some clients that are been with us since 2018, but are not like happy about our new packages
Hmm.
for some reason
Yeah.
that I
Yeah.
won't dig
I
into.
think
It's
regardless, like nothing's ever going to be perfect. You're still going to have those clients, but
for sure, but
yeah.
but
Have you
the
made any sort of changes system wise since changing the website, the approach, the
oh,
diagnostic kind of
ton,
style? Okay,
a
but it's
ton.
still it's still just a work in progress then.
It's yeah, there's well, and this is where I think the up leveling of the thinking needs to happen because I think what got baked into the system by our old manager was this idea that she created the perfect set of rules for everybody to follow, and just if
Hmm.
everybody followed them, nothing would go wrong. And it's like that
Hmm.
only works until somebody breaks their head against your rules
Hmm.
and you're stuck, right? And so
Yeah, I've
and
never liked rules. I've always been more of a framework
yeah,
kind of guy. Give me some
yeah.
guidelines, and I'll work
Yep.
between them. But strict rules never work. Times always change,
No,
unless you're
exactly.
going to
And
keep
and people
updating them and updating
change.
them,
Well, that's
which
also
is a pain.
sticky, right? Like it's a
Yes.
pain. And if they're not attached to a framework and top level principles, and they're just rules that, without any context, then nobody can creatively problem solve outside of them. And that was
Hmm.
kind of where it's a little bit where our front desk is trained to think right now, which is to me problematic. It's like, I know I need you guys to be a little bit more thinking about this as opposed to just like doing what we say. I'm like, I could get AI to do that at this point. Like, not that I would threaten them with that, but
Hmm.
but it's like if you can't creatively think through, like, okay, my job is customer service. I'm already overwhelmed and feeling like some days are all phone calls, all email, all text. Other days I'm sitting around twiddling my thumbs.
Hmm.
Like, could I get the front desk to understand what to do with themselves on the days when there's no customer service immediately right in front of them in a
Hmm.
way that would actually make use of their time
Yeah, they
without the
might be able to be
managers just
productive and do
constantly yeah, it's like
do work
maybe
from another day
maybe
or something like that. Get
yeah,
ahead of it.
well, to walk around the studio and see if there's stuff to neaten up. Who knows? There's a
Hmm.
zillion things that could be done.
Hmm.
But because they're just doing the thing that's on their list and then checking it off, it's like they're like, I did it, I'm done. And it's like,
Their brain just
great.
shuts off and it's just make sure the list is
But
done. That's it. Yeah.
that's right. But that's
Yeah.
not their fault. That's actually
No.
how the system trained them, and the system was created by somebody who thought that way. That I am responsible for having hired and had in that position. So, like,
Yeah.
there's change, and I need to make sure it's implemented. But I'm
Well,
not trying to blame anybody.
David, I do commend your self awareness because there is not a lot of people, even business owners, I would say people in general, but business owners especially, that will overlook their practice and understand what is going on and understand what
Hmm.
needs to change and what's good, what's bad. I guess overall just be honest and you got to be
Hmm.
delusional in business a little bit, but you have to see clearly at the same time. So I just
Mhm.
I commend you for that 110%.
Thank
But
you.
if I was to, maybe ask your team, because you said, there's days where things slow down, all that kind of stuff. I was to ask your team on a day-to-day basis, what slows down? Where do you think they'd point?
It's a good question. Um, it would depend on which part of my team, because my management level team, they're not feeling that. They're like,
Hmm.
no, we need help. We're always working, and then we can never
Hmm.
get everything done. And I'm like, good. And also, you need to get rid of the idea that you need to get everything done. You need to start thinking through what is the most impactful thing I can do and do that.
Hmm.
Because after you do that, the other five things on the list might not be meaningful at all, right?
A
Like,
100%. That's the thing is you do one thing and then everything else
yeah,
changes too.
that's right. Yeah,
Ugh.
it's a struggle, but I see in myself that this is the next level for them as and their
Hmm.
roles, and they're doing great. Like they've learned and they will assimilate this, but then having that ethos, then being able to train down underneath them, because that's the um my wife, who's co-owner, really rightly said, we're more than happy to hire on to soften your load and to because we're at that level where we do need more help, but we want to make sure that these things that are these frameworks are shifted in the right direction so that they're not poorly trained underneath you and just pass the telephone game problem down and dilute,
Hmm.
basically sit around taking up your time. It's like you shouldn't actually have to manage that person directly all the time. And I think that's the problem. Is like we're still sort of like as an organization we're digging out of it. Our managers are very creative. They understand the business well. It's more like this old way of thinking that our old manager had is still rearing its ugly head from time to time of like
So
there
just
should
more
just be rules, and
systems.
once we figure them out we'll never have to change anything ever again. It will just magically always work, and all there will be no breakdowns. And it's like that is not the
Fairyland. Yeah.
universe.
Yeah, it's fairyland. But
Yeah.
it sounds like from your perspective, just more kind of SOPs, systems, that kind of stuff will allow you to start to get to the next level. Just having everybody kind of on the same page within the operation.
Yeah. And I think it's less about SOPs, because I think that's almost the problem, is that our SOPs are way too detailed and way too like,
Hmm.
you know, build a better mousetrap kind of like level of thinking, as opposed to what is the clear goal that these are supposed to be meeting, and what is the clear framework for and principles, so that you don't stray outside the brand and start trying to sell everything under the sun that isn't our what we do, right? Like as long as you're not straying outside of the brand, how can you creatively problem solve within these principles, right? And that's kind
Yeah.
of missing right now. And I think that that's it's not missing for the
So you need
therapists.
your branded way of creative problem solving.
Yeah,
The way body works creatively problem solved and
yeah,
be
and
able
and
to have that internalized from your team.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, Layla Hormozy, the other of the Hormozys,
Hmm.
actually is she's actually a better operator than Alex is, and they both will talk about that.
Well,
She talks
females
about the
typically are when they're
yeah.
business minded. They
Well,
typically are. They're smart.
yeah, I'm not gonna. You know what? I'm gonna stray away from that with that whole landmine of
Yeah,
genderization.
that
But
that was a bad one. Yeah, 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 yeah. Sorry, I forgot. I forgot. This is
that's okay.
2026.
No, 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 it's fine. Historically, well, I'll both back it up and also say that there's zero like statistical relevance to the idea, but nowadays. But there's one could talk about the idea that in feudal Japan, it was always the wife's job to run the household and do the finances and do the strategy planning for the war and do, you know, and
That's
not the
crazy. The
not
women
the
are the
husband's
thinkers. The
job.
men are the
Yeah,
workhorses.
that's right. That
Basically.
was how it worked in Japan. That nowadays it's anybody can do anything for sure, and
That's yep.
I
You could be a F-16 attack plane if you want to be.
yeah, totally. Um, you know, and if we want to sort of hopefully dig ourselves out of this hole that we've just opened up and tossed ourselves into, I will say that traditionally, women had to be better operators because they had to run the household. You know, they
Mhm.
don't have to anymore, but that's still sort of seeped into the culture and
Mhm.
still affects the culture that way. But yeah, I mean, all right, I'm going to stop talking. So let's
No
prepare
worries.
ourselves more.
No
Um,
worries. I'll get us back on track a little bit here. I guess back to the business side. You mentioned your website. You mentioned a little bit of social media content, all that kind of stuff. Where does most of your clients come from right now? Referrals, searching on the website, word of mouth, or
it is largely organic traffic through the website. Um, there is then a secondary, very clear meta ads and Google ads
Mhm.
level
Okay,
that
so you're running
also supports
advertisements for
that.
it as well.
Yeah, for sure. And
Okay.
probably way more than most people in my industry.
Okay.
Uh, yeah.
Got it.
There's also word of mouth and referrals and all that too.
Of
Like
course.
there's a mix of about everything, but I would
Mainly like
say
the
if we
top two.
had to, the top two is definitely organic and ads, you
And that
know.
was all from your SEO. Basically, somebody types in, "Hey, I'm feeling
Hmm.
hip pain here, here, here," and then it pops up your website.
Correct.
Or
Yep.
I'm dealing with this issue in my hips, or I'm dealing with whatever brand
Yeah.
issue
Well, and
for.
even above SEO nowadays, like I would say pure, like if somebody did the more generic version of SEO pre-AI and just typed in deep tissue massage NYC, we do okay there. We're not like,
Mhm.
we're not invisible, but we're not like the number one choice. But if you were to start talking to an LLM, and we've gotten a lot of clients who are like, I didn't even think about massage. I just started describing my symptoms to it. And then it said, hey, have you thought about medical massage? And by the way, you should go here if you want to do that. That actually
Mhm.
is a pathway that's working pretty well for us as well. And then that also does combine with socials. I mean, because of our videography and our YouTube channel, like I've had a lot of clients, especially come to work with me because I'm the face of that, who have these very, very strange conditions. I've become kind of known as like the guy who will like try anything for anyone to see if it can help them.
Mhm.
And case in point, and I can say this without using the client name, but still describe the scenario because she is going to be public about it on our YouTube channel at some point soon. She's going to be on our podcast. But I had a client recently DM me at like God knows what time in the morning when I actually happen to be up, and I normally would never respond to a DM at 2 in the morning, except her case was so fascinating that I actually was just like, yeah, okay, let's talk. And she had something called trigeminal nerve pain and occipital nerve pain that was making half of her face either go numb, prickly, or into abject, searing, burning pain, and it was chronic for a year and a half. And she'd been to dozens of specialists. Everybody shrugged their shoulders and said, we can't help you. And she saw my video on TMJ somewhere on Instagram and was like, I don't know, this is just a shot in the dark. Do you think you could help me? And I was like, actually, I've seen that condition in about a dozen patients. I'm not. All right, just to get really clear, I, under my licensure, have to call people clients, not patients. I'm not a doctor, right?
Mhm.
And the only reason I introduced that word at all is that's the word choice she used in the DM, and I had to actually say, well, as clients. So I've seen about a dozen clients with this, and I was very clear with her that like it really depends on the exact thing that's clamping down on the nerve, or whether there's nerve damage specifically due to something like a tumor or something, because that could really be the only thing I could think of that would cause it, unless you literally had some accident that crushed your face or something. And
Mhm.
then, right, like, so I had to go through these scenarios of like, there's a very specific way that I could be, if this is what the cause is, I might be able to help you, but if it's any of these other causes, I absolutely can't.
Mhm.
And if, so I had to like, so is it, and she was like, well, it's not that, da, 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 da. And I was like, okay, so given the case that you don't know what's causing it at all, here's where I could maybe help. If the fascia in your skull is compressing that nerve, and it happens to be the same fascia that's related to muscles I can get at from inside the mouth, because I do very specialized inside the mouth TMJ work.
Mhm.
I have seen that produce good results for about 3 out of the 12 people I've worked with. So like a 1 in 4 potential, not a coin toss, but like, so potentially, if you don't have these other issues, and you know you don't from the imaging that your doctors have done, and they don't know what's causing it, but you know, then you got about a 25% chance that working with me might help you. Basically, is how
Hmm.
I had to put it, which comes
Yeah.
right back to your idea very early on of like honest solutions, right? Like, and I'm
Hmm.
very honest that there is a potential, but I don't want to like blow smoke and say, absolutely, I can help you, right? Like, and under those conditions, she was just like, you know what? I'll give anything a shot. I'm in agony. Let me try. And I was
Yeah.
like, great. I'm totally willing to go there with you. And when she came in, I repeated all of that, you know, just to make sure that we were on the same page. And also sort of said, if you do get any relief from this treatment, I'm going to hazard a guess it's going to take us 6 to 8 sessions to get anything that means like real long-term relief, and maybe more. And then she just happened to be one of those lucky 5% that not
Hmm.
only was she in the 25% that I could help, but actually within 2 sessions, her symptoms were basically 90% gone, other than some
Wow.
flare ups, which is nothing I would have bet a single dollar on. I would never have bet a dime on that outcome, but it happened. And purely because I was very clear about what I thought was possible and not possible. And she was willing to take that gamble with, you know, a couple hours of her time with commute and the time on the table and the cost of my session, which was 205 for the 60 minute. And
Hmm.
then, you know, the results were so great that now she comes and sees me, you know, she's seen me like 9 or 10 times now. And
Wow.
now she's seeing me for other things, not for that, which is cool.
Sure. Sure.
But you know, now how did we get on this?
I don't
What was the
remember, but it
question that
is.
prompted?
I think I was talking about
It's okay.
where traffic flows from, to be honest with
Oh,
you. But it's
right.
funny because I
And
was
so that
actually.
was
Oh, go ahead.
DM. Yeah, it was like a DM from social,
Yeah,
which is
that's
like
what it was.
not
Yeah,
at all our big bucket income or
but
intake of clients, but
it's so funny you started diving into that because my next thing I was wanting to ask you kind of about a client success story for the most part, maybe a
mm,
client that like surprised you or
hmm
came in with like presenting a certain issue and then what was actually happening underneath was maybe different from what they thought or what from you thought what it would have been. But yeah, it's
mm,
funny because I was just about to ask you that. If you have another one you'd like
yeah.
to share, feel free. Client success
Yeah.
stories are always great.
Well, that's a big one lately. I mean, and you know,
Hmm.
obviously I have lots of them, but I think, okay, so the one that kind of comes to mind is a classic story I talk about. This is actually a client from like that I've known for 10 or 12 years and started seeing me just for stress and pain relief from desk work. And then, and I won't use names, I never do, but and I won't tell you what her job is because, given the scenario of her condition and the
For
job,
sure.
you could probably Google her. But she's also an avid horse rider, and
Okay.
you know, couple of years into our relationship, just working on normal back pain, neck pain, shoulder pain stuff, she gets thrown from a horse headfirst into a wall, and I love this story as both a guiding light for multiple things for therapists. So she rightfully, even though she didn't go unconscious and she didn't feel all that bad, decided I need to go get this checked out. So they drive her to the hospital in a car, which in hindsight was lucky that nothing happened to her.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
they
because you
get
could
to the
fracture your
hospital.
vertebrae and whatnot. Like you hit your head.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm going there. I'm going
Yeah.
there. Um, she gets to the hospital. They check her pupils for concussion. They decide that
Hmm.
she's fine. They're going to release her. And she's like, you know what? No, I want x-rays. And they're like,
Hmm.
oh, fine, whatever. So they
Yeah.
throw her in the x-ray machine, and the x-ray tech is literally like, sees the images and is like, get a backboard in here now, right? Like,
Yeah.
because she
Yeah.
had cracked the loop, so the your cervical vertebra have the body, and then the
Mhm.
disc, and then
I did. I
the
went through. I went
foramen
through
for the
EMT school.
spine.
I'm relatively
Great.
relatively
Yeah, yeah.
familiar.
So
Yep.
so for the viewers, the side loops are where your local nerves go
There
out
you
of,
go.
and there are these foramen that go through there. And she had cracked one of the loops of C1 and cracked the body of C2, like through the body. And so the loop
Wow.
was cracked off completely. and the body was cracked through, like stress fracture, not maybe completely, but it, the type of condition that if you sneeze wrong, you might Christopher Reeve yourself. Like
Yeah.
certainly lose function all on one side of your shoulder and arm from that foramen, but all sorts of bad things could happen to you. So they threw her in her backboard, and she consulted with whether to go surgical or not. And after talking to a bunch of surgeons and PTs, they decided to keep her in a neck brace for 12 weeks, let the bones heal on their own, which they did.
Hmm.
And then we did rehab, and she was working with a PT as well as me. And because she was in a back brace for 12 weeks, she was literally like Michael Keaton in Batman, in the first couple of
Hmm.
Batmans, where the suit didn't have any neck movement. And so she
Yeah.
had to use her torso and her spine to look around. And so I had to invent an entirely new way of working on her, where I could press into the back extensors and the rotational muscles of her spine and ask her to lift and move her head around separately, so that I could
Wow.
disabuse her brain of using her back extensors and spinal rotators to do this, right?
Uh-huh.
And now she's super healthy. She's got more neck movement and flexibility than most clients do.
Yeah.
She's perfectly fine, but it was a very interesting, challenging experience, because I basically had to be like, nobody ever taught me anything like this about
Yeah.
this. Nobody's ever
Or
taught. I didn't
there's
even
no
envision.
protocol,
Yeah,
or
right.
process or anything that you could
No,
write out to tell you how to solve anything like that. Like, what do you think would have happened if you were on vacation or something and she needed to be seen and one of your other therapists saw her? How do you think that may have went,
I think they would
hypothetically?
have given her a nice back or neck massage, and she would have been fine. No, it's no damage, but she certainly wouldn't have actually improved very quickly.
Hmm.
And, maybe not. Maybe they would have come up with something fantastic. I have no idea. Like, I do try to, when I'm training my therapists, I definitely do not come from the do it this way, this sequence my way. I'm learn. It's more like, I don't know. Do you ever play a musical instrument
Nah, not
yourself?
specifically.
No.
No.
Okay. I'm going to use this metaphor anyway, because it's not just you and I, it's who's ever watching. But like, when you're learning music, you can either there's two main pathways. There's listening to a record and copying it and playing what you hear on the record, learning by ear. And then
Hmm.
there's learning music theory, and then how that made the music in the first place, and then applying that to learning the music. And they're both valid, but one, you end up not, sort of getting a collection of things that sound like other people, and eventually maybe your own style comes out of it. And the other,
Hmm.
you could very quickly push your own creativity and style through it and come up with your own thing right away.
I see where
And
you're going. Yep.
when I teach massage, I don't really try to teach a handful of techniques. I try to teach theory of how to think about it differently and how to see differently and analyze differently, so that then you can apply your own creative problem solving and your own
Hmm.
techniques
So
to
you could
how you want to
really,
go about it.
stitch a wound back up instead of just putting a band-aid over top of it.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so, well, or to use that metaphor, like, there's one way to stitch that you're taught in school. Maybe you come up with a better stitch that
Yeah.
nobody ever thought of before, that actually
That as
closes
well.
the
Yeah.
wound better and creates less of a scar, right? Like,
And
that is something
it's
that,
prettier. Yeah, exactly.
and
Less
it's,
of a
yeah,
scar.
and that's the way that I'm trying to teach them to think about it. It's like,
Hmm.
don't just try to think David does it this way, it works, because it does. You could
Hmm.
absolutely copy my way and get really good results, because that's why I do it that way. But
Hmm.
if
Yeah,
I teach the
exactly.
principles, a lot of times my students, especially even somebody fresh out of school, I'll look over and they're doing something I never thought of. I'm like, that is so
Hmm.
cool. I'm stealing that from you. And they're like, what?
Yeah, right.
I'm like, yeah, no, I never thought of doing it that way. That's awesome. Right. And so I really try to encourage that kind of creative thinking about how people work, rather than be like, I've figured it all out, do it my way. So,
Hmm.
not that I
Yeah.
haven't figured a lot of it out. And if you're really stuck, you should try my way. But,
Yeah.
you
Better
know,
than nothing. Better than nothing.
yeah.
But curious. I guess we're kind of getting to the end here, unfortunately. I'd keep this running a little longer. I don't know what your schedule's looking like, but we're coming up on that like hour-ish. I know we're scheduled in
Yeah,
for
yeah.
that, but I always
I
love
got
to
time.
try and see into the future as best as possible. But
Hmm.
if you were to double Bodyworks in the next 18 months,
Hmm.
What do you think that would do for you? And then what do you also think maybe would break first or be a setback first or,
Yeah.
anything along those lines? I think you see where I'm going with that.
Yeah, I do. And what's funny is we're in the process of well, we're expanding and doubling our space in one of our studios. I just
Hmm.
literally signed the lease a few weeks ago and looked at where the new walls are going in and
Really? While
met
still
with
needing more
contractor.
therapists as well?
Yeah, because
Okay.
our 10-year lease is coming up, and honestly, like I got to look at what this is going to look like. We were
Hmm.
close to capacity in that space. You know, yeah, I don't need it yet, but what is this going to look like in 2 or 3 years and even
Hmm.
18 months from now? And like, would I want to have, and there's other reasons why we're doing it, but yeah. And there's ways to offset the extra overhead. Actually, in terms of overhead expenses, is really not like one of our. It's not that major in terms of our whole monthly timeline.
Hmm.
I think we're adding what 8 grand of expense onto our monthly. Which sounds like a lot, but actually, could be absorbed with one or two more hires,
Sure.
and then have a space that we can grow into for the next 10 years as opposed to one that's going to absolutely limit us within a year.
Hmm. Yeah.
So that was really the thought process behind that move. And it also just had to do with which spaces were open when. I mean, ideally, I would have stayed where we are for another year and moved after, but you can't always do that, right? Like,
No.
and we didn't want to switch buildings or addresses or landlords. I'm
Hmm.
weirdly one of the few people that actually has a great landlord, and I like my landlord.
Especially in New York City, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
I know. Well, exactly. Like, no, he's a fair operator himself, and really is easy to work with. Um, and you don't want to have to change your address and tell, there's a whole bunch of reasons why we did this. Not all of them are perfect, but anyway, so coming back to your question of 18 months, if we doubled, what would break? Because that's what you asked me. Um, Definitely what would break if we didn't change anything. Like that's really like more the
That's
tenor of
yeah,
your
basically from
question.
where you're staying. Because
Yeah,
I know
yeah,
you're going to keep growing. I know you're going to keep changing things, but
yeah.
I guess somewhat of a hypothetical. If everything was to stay the same, and then you were to jump 18 months in the future, maybe have more work, whatever it could be. What do you see as a pitfall?
So the the what would break pitfall would be, I think, that oh God, I'm chewing on this because I think what might break is that instead of our old problem of therapist turnover, because that was really, one of the things we were running into is that we would hire and our retention rate for new hires was some abysmal rate of like 1 in 3 or 1 in 4.
Hmm.
Um, and now that we've changed our whole comp model and like who we hire, it's really flipped completely around to like we might retain all of the 6 that we hired this year for a long term.
Sure.
Nobody's certainly anyway. So that was our problem. I actually think what would happen is our support team would just fall apart completely and probably like if we didn't change anything or grow it or
Hmm. The
or
custom,
add
like you
in
were saying earlier,
support.
the customer support and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. Like,
Okay.
and the turnover there would probably be insane. We'd probably just have like dissatisfied front desk people, managers, assistant managers, all
Hmm.
just quitting on us and having to be replaced over and over and over again, which
Hmm.
would suck a lot.
And then on the flip side, what's actually going to happen? Where do you see yourself 18 months from now? Best case scenario, everything's working out. Keep
Yeah.
putting in systems, processes, all this kind of stuff. Keep growing. Keep taking on practitioners or
hmm
therapists. Where would you like to see yourself in 18 months?
Well, what's funny is had you asked me that 3 months ago, I would have had a very different answer because 3 months ago, I would have told you that I would have seen us at 32 total therapists in 18 months,
Hmm.
like two a quarter. And at the time I said that, it was like, we were at 16 therapists, so that's actually more like 28 therapists, something like that. Weirdly, because our new comp model is working and our new branding is working and our marketing is working to then hire people on and have them immediately satisfied with a completely full schedule, we've hired 6 this quarter, like which was like 3x what I predicted as the high bar. And so now I'm like, oh, wow. Well, I don't necessarily think that trend line will continue or not. I don't want to count on it. But let's say it was more like three or four, and that this was like, even there, if three or four a quarter would have us at like, another 12 to 15 therapists by 18 months from now,
Sure.
more maybe. And then we
Saying that
would
it wouldn't
be,
continue to, almost snowball at the same time as you learn the
yeah.
approach that you're taking and who you're looking for, and sectioning out that criteria, I guess.
Yeah, so let's say that we got to double to 40 therapists from the 20 that we're at
Hmm.
now. I that's what, you just really helped me out, because what I'm going to answer is the thing that would break is me, because right now I'm the one doing most therapist training
Yes. Okay.
and most
Yeah, yeah,
therapist
yeah, yeah.
mentorship, or all. And I would absolutely need to bake in that the top people at our lead level, the
Hmm.
people with really good experience, need to be trained to take on that for me and with me, so
Hmm.
that I'm not because there's zero way I could actually like do
Manage
all of
40
that.
while doing clients and education and
No,
every part of it. Yeah.
no,
Just,
there's zero way I would be the one that breaks. And it would always be me, because I would always give everybody else the support they need and then break myself
hmm
against the problem, which is a
hmm
bad, both a good and a bad trait. It has its pros and cons, you know?
yeah. Yeah, for sure. I understand what you're saying though. 100%. I'm very similar. But that's, so you think yeah, I mean, that makes sense. That does make sense. 110%. So what do you think would need, to go in place then instead?
Yeah. Well, the thing I just said, so I would need to, and this is actually this would be the right and good evolution, is that like at some point the top people who are at our highest level of income, they're going to need more opportunities to A, make more
Hmm.
income, but B, just have something more high level to do than just good
Hmm.
client work. We all get 20 years in, you get bored with just client work. Like, no matter how
Sure.
interesting it is, and most of us, I can't think of anybody on the team who doesn't love the work, but eventually you want some new thing. And for some people, they've already expressed desire in teaching, which we're building right now, like that I'm not the only teacher of continuing education, but we'd also want to build in more very clear ways for mentorship to happen from
That's
from
awesome.
the level along me. And some of them, I mean, technically some of the people we have on staff have more field experience than I do, 25 plus years.
Hmm.
There's a I'm going to throw this out there, that there is a client misperception that years in the field in our industry always equals better. And that's just not true anywhere, but it's definitely not true with massage therapists. There are
Yeah, you
massage
could have
therapists who
20
get
20
really,
years in one bad practice focusing on the same
yeah,
kind of issues for 20 years on autopilot and you don't learn anything new.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, in the next 18 months, what would make it your best year inside the business then, I guess? Because you come to 40, therapists, but now you're strained. You got to come up with, I think I'm kind of already working too much and kind of answering the question for, let me just go with that. 18 months, what would make this, kind of the best progress within the business that you could see?
So for me and where I'm at, right, because I just named a couple different problems that I could solve, right, but I need to learn how not to be the one who's always solving the problems.
Hmm.
And that's really my evolution as an owner operator, is like, and that's kind of what I've been talking about all week, and also have referenced multiple times, of having to train my team to not look to me for all the how, right? Like, and actually like have me be at a level where I can just say what, it's sort of like Picard on Star Trek. Like, it's basically like, make it so, right? Like I actually, and in order for that level of, I want this result, make it so, to be in place, I need to train people how to think creatively on their own without coming to me for the solutions to the
Hmm.
problems, right? Like, and so
Yeah.
for for the best year, it's like what I would love to see happen, and it's where I am seeing happening, and I'm gonna make sure that I don't break it, is that we continue. doing what we figured out that works, which is hiring these very experienced people and actually giving them an awesome place to work where they get to do the work that they really wanted to go to school for and do it and get really good outcomes for clients and also be really happy and really well paid to do that work. So that's actually what we built last year and now is working and now seems to be why we hired 6 instead of 2 therapists in 3 months.
Hmm.
So if we got to 40, from just a pure, math perspective, like we will have crossed from the running in the red territory last fall to, very comfortably in the black and thinking about
Hmm.
what to do with that and reinvesting it. And maybe I pay myself, like actually give myself a raise for the first time in 5 years.
Nice. Get a little
Um,
vacation or something.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, I do that for myself, but I do more
Very
of that,
nice.
let's say.
Yep.
But I would see that this is the year that we could take the continuing education products and courses and actually really have them be a viable side revenue stream and not
That's what
just like,
I love the fact that you have that implemented in there, especially already having it built out and having, your understanding of where you lie within that, because that you could really, if you really wanted to monetize it and take it to another level, you could 1,000%, because you can
hmm
market it towards practitioners to not only grow and,
hmm
and better their practice, but you could also bundle in practical tips, guides, steps,
hmm
courses, programs, whatever it would be, to the average everyday human being. Work on, long-term vision, a year, three
hmm
years, whatever it ends up being, grow a following, and it's on
yeah.
autopilot at that point.
Here's something hilarious that you'll laugh at, right? Like, because honestly, like, I built the continuing education to teach my therapists and help them
Yeah,
get the credit
yeah. It
they
was
need to
it
do
was an internal
anyway.
thing.
It was an internal thing that then became an external thing that isn't, I mean, it's probably maybe the ROI on it is 1 to 1 as opposed to negative something. Um, and then that's the real world number, monetary ROI. The secondary ROI is still very high in terms of quality of therapists and things like that and branding. So I'm not trying to ditch that it has, no value beyond what money it makes or brings in. But
Hmm.
this year, I think it's sold something like $6,000 worth of courses so far, which is the tiny blip of
Wow.
our company's
For the
revenue
year,
for the year so far. So
how much does
three
the program
months.
cost?
Well, there's a lot of different courses, and there's like little tiny
Okay.
ones that are 2 hours for $50, all the way up to 12-hour 2 day things
Okay.
for 480. And
Got it. But
it's
it's
not a
a
big
okay, so it's
full
a
course. It's
one-time purchase kind of
modules.
thing. You buy one
Yep.
video, that's it. Okay. I mean,
Well,
if
and
I can make
it's
a
there.
recommendation as well,
Yeah.
I love the subscription model because you're going to build recurring
hmm
revenue. You could
Yeah.
change it to something, I don't know, pricing wise. I'd have to dig deeper into it, to be honest with you, and really understand the information. But subscription models typically, not to
Yeah.
say work better,
Well,
but
and
you're going to get that
we're
recurring revenue
working
off of it.
on a product like that, and
Hmm.
that for sure. It's always just like how much of my time can I devote to X, and like
Oh, 100%.
right
Well, if you're
now
building
in
something like that out, you're definitely going to need to be a part of it. But I would say you're going to need a team for something like
yeah,
that, like a team
totally.
specialized for it, to be honest with you. Because
And
for me, at least, it's you can go out, you can learn it, and you can still probably succeed with it. But what's the time? What's the trade off with the
yeah,
time and
yep.
the result that you're going to get? And not only the trade off with the time and the result you're going to get, but if I would have went with the right choice from the get-go,
hmm
how much results could I have gotten within that time that I missed out on, if I
Totally.
put that the right way?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely did. And the metaphor for everybody from one of my clients who's a financial advisor is like, yeah, I mean, you could hold on to that stock that's barely doing anything, or you could just sell it, take a loss, and then reinvest in something that has a gain, right? Which
Sure.
is, and over the time of the next 6 months, you'll end up in a
Hmm.
better place, even having taken a loss, right? Like, and so I'm going to chew on that because you're absolutely right. I mean, and we're getting close to the territory where with a few more hires, we'll actually have the extra budget
Hmm.
to think about something like that.
Especially consumer side. You can leave the clinic side because I'm sure there's not going to be as much volume for something like that. But consumer
Yeah.
side, if you're going to help people solve their problems, they're going to keep coming back to you. They're not going to want to lose that. A subscription model is going to kill.
Yeah.
Absolutely kill.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, so I'll finish with so I was going to say
Yeah,
something
sorry about
very
that.
funny. So right in this tiny little blip of $6,000 sales for the year, most of it is local New York State therapists coming and taking my live courses that I opened purely
Okay.
because I wanted to teach my therapists. Some of it is our online demand courses where we've taken old courses and turned them into products that could go.
Hmm.
And we had, this is just bizarre and hilarious to me. Of those little blip of sales, 10 of them were from some little place in Australia.
Really?
Yeah, which blew
And
my
you didn't do
mind.
anything for that. It was
No,
organic
I
as
was
well.
just like, what are you talking about? Like, I
That
can
is
barely move
crazy.
product here locally, but on the other, literal other side of the world, I've had 10 sales. That's
You know where you
insane,
need to target
right?
now. Well, it's because
Yeah, right.
they're also so all the European countries and Australia as well and all of them, they're all so focused on holistic approaches and taking
Yeah.
care of themselves and their bodies and that kind of stuff. It makes sense, but
It's just,
that
I
is
was like,
funny.
what?
That is
Brisbane?
funny. Well, I'm sure
What the hell?
you had to refresh the tab a couple of times because you're like, what are you
Yeah,
talking
right.
about? Are
No,
you
but
talking
then to
about a
see, it
city
was like,
somewhere?
yeah, it blew my mind, right? Like, and
Oh,
the
I
other thing that
bet.
blows my mind is that, like, for our live courses, no, yes, most of it is New York State therapists. That's who
Hmm.
we are. But I've had people come from all over the country, and even like one of my classes recently, somebody was like, "Oh, I flew in from Ghana yesterday." I was like, "What now?
Wow.
Are you okay? Do you need some sleep? Like, what?"
I
You
could
know?
have, if you would have messaged me, I would have hosted it on Zoom, especially for you.
Yeah, exactly. And I was just like, what? And so there it's anyway, the thing is like obviously from a business standpoint as opposed to a practitioner, massage therapist standpoint, there's a vast difference in ceiling of monetization on something that can be marketed worldwide versus very, very local, right? And so
For sure.
the trick is always how much of my time can I devote. Do I want I'm I'm egotistic enough, and I'll call myself out on this that way, to say that I wouldn't want it to be made by somebody else and then given to me on a platter to just sign off on. Like, I have to
Hmm.
make it my own thing.
100%.
And
And you're
whatever that.
going to get the best result that way as well because you know what you need. I mean, you're going to a team, you explain to them what you need, but they don't 100% know what you need. You know what you need.
Yeah.
So you being in the process allows them to give you what you need. Sorry, I've been speaking
Yeah.
weird today for some reason.
No, that's okay. And really, the breakdown is just like I had so many other problems in the model of our main business that I had to butt my head against for the last 12 months. That now is the first time where I'm like, oh, it's actually working. All the
Hmm.
fixes we made are working. We don't have a demand problem anymore. We have a supply problem, but not in the way that I envisioned, where we couldn't hire therapists quickly enough. Like, we've
Hmm.
actually been able to hire at a way faster clip. If I just let that run and don't fuck it up, like, we'll be in a really good place in months from now. And I would have the bandwidth and the budget to do exactly what you're talking about. Is
Hmm.
any number and any number of ways to monetize a massage course product that is either subscription or course or both or whatever you do, but has a potential audience that is far beyond just like New York City.
I think it might be just to plant the seed in your mind as well. I think it might be a little easier than you may think as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the course content is going to be the hardest part, and just having, I think this is just how I see it as well. You go A to Z for the entire body of every possible thing you could solve, and everything that for the most part,
Hmm.
and package that into something. With AI nowadays, it's so easy to save time with all of this shit. And one really big help, if you do use AI, open a Google Docs sheet and use the voice to speech thing, and you can just say
Oh yeah,
everything that you want, and you copy and paste it into there.
totally.
But all you would need to market this kind of stuff is you could even do it organically is literally just start a page talking about the problems
Hmm.
within the human body within I don't know what your stance is societally, but with like the lifestyle that we have, and how that
Hmm.
stuff
Oh
kind of
yeah.
affects it, and just so many different angles that, I mean, personally, from a marketing perspective, I think you guys would crush it with that.
I Yeah, I'm not worried. It's literally what you just said. It's the time to
Making it.
build the thing in
Yeah,
the first place and wanting to
exactly.
be happy with it and not have it just be, something slapped together.
Mhm.
But
Well,
that is
there
the
is
project
the
we're diving into.
there is the idea of putting it out and changing it as you grow, is just having a
Hmm.
baseline, and it could be a little cheaper, and then as you grow and get better it gets a little more expensive, kind of like with the practice. When you narrow down, you niche
Yeah,
down, you get a little
totally.
more expensive. When you're more focused in, just launch something out there. It could be
Yep.
maybe just something about your shoulders, your chest, like the main
Hmm.
groups. And then over time, you have a couple Fridays and you go, oh, I'm going to record one on this, then this, then this, and you just
Yep.
take it one step at a time.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And some of that is actually like real. Like we have real courses. So some of it
Yeah.
is more that we haven't even had time to like just this last week we literally finally moved the landing pages from the old crappy website to the new one. And
Hmm.
and it's like once that's in place and we're actually like gonna get the inflow that our main website gets, like it will start selling itself without a lot of extra. But we're even now just talking about, okay, once that's actually in place and the branding is up to date, then we can actually run ads on it and
Hmm.
make it work and market it,
For
right?
sure. So
But that's been
you
like
guys
a
manage your
real.
website? You guys manage your website yourself?
We No, we don't. We hired a really amazing outfit called Studio Scaler, who, by the
Yeah.
way, has an agreement with me that they will not work with another medical massage outfit, just for everybody watching. However, if you are a
Oh,
yoga studio or a Pilates studio, I highly recommend you talk to them
there
because
you
they're
go.
awesome. Um, they both build websites and do CRM integration with them.
Hmm.
They're called Studio Scaler. And they're a husband and wife team, actually from Germany, even though she's German, he's English and British. But he's more of the coder side of the couple, and they have a whole team under them. It's not just them. She's the UX and web designer and the person, and she's largely responsible for our rebrand in the visual sense, but also even in the like just like her understanding of user experience blows my mind. Like the way
Mm.
that she thought through the pathways of how you go through the website and how it leads from there to there, like are just nothing I would have ever thought of. And so, while it was definitely an investment for sure, and it was absolutely worth it. And it wasn't, and I would say it's a better investment than just having hired somebody to build a website that then we have to manage. So we have an ongoing
Hmm.
retainer with them. And so they're
Okay.
technically in charge of the website. However, it's still
Like you were saying
my
before, you want to be in it.
website.
Yeah. No,
And
100%.
they don't know what I do to the level of depth that anybody knows. Like, so
Well,
I
the
have to
main
be
reason I was
involved in some of
asking
the
is
copy.
because I was making sure that you guys weren't managing the website,
Oh
because that's
God,
just one
yeah.
other thing you have to do. I was, yeah,
Yeah.
just
No.
clarifying, for the most part. But
No, for
that is awesome.
sure.
I love to hear people getting results. Absolutely love it. But I'm curious, David, what excites you the most? Next 12, 18 months, something like that. We were talking about those kind of time periods a lot, so probably stick within there. What excites you the most?
What excites me the most? Um, well, I think it's funny. You're really catching me at this point where I'm having to like I'm getting to celebrate like the accomplishment from the last 12 months and not almost like I'm not quite resisting your what is it going to look like in the future
Hmm.
questions, but it's more like I guess so what excites me the most is that like we actually like and I've been saying all right, I'll put it this way. I've been saying this to clients who ask because I have relationships and clients always ask like why how did this happen or that happen? Why do you have a new website? And I'll say like a year ago, beginning of 2025, I really had hit a wall where I was like, A, I'm running in the red. B, we're we're just struggling to hire and keep good therapists and turning over. We never had really a big problem with client demand, but we did to get, like beyond a certain point.
Hmm.
And like, I don't know what the problem is. Like, I literally
Sure.
was like, I don't even know what the problem is. And then I kind of like butted my head against that and figured out, oh, the problem is we, you know, are swimming in the same pond as everybody right now. And I thought we were differentiated and unique, which we were, but that has run out and everybody else
Hmm.
saw what we were doing and caught up to us, and now we're actually like not, we're competing on the same level as everybody else as opposed to being like unique. And so I spent time, I remember being in Belize last April with my mom and my sister for a short vacation with them, and sitting there at 3 in the morning with ChatGPT just being like, I need a new tagline. Like, our old tagline was advanced massage therapy for pain and stress, which served us for like 10 plus years, and
Hmm.
it was fine, but it was very
Definitely not the
single
bottleneck.
minded. Well, no, but it was it still was stuck in the idea that what we're doing is trying to sell the best version of a single massage without realizing
Okay.
that's what it was.
Got it.
So
I
I
understand.
sat there and just played and brainstormed and finally came up with, which was right on our about page, the tagline Beyond Massage, Guided Progress, Lasting Results. And it took me
Nice.
hours to iterate over every word choice, but that phrase changed the entire direction of the company because it became not about the best single massage, but
It's
about
your why.
what
You're
does that
changing your why
mean?
statement. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What does it mean if we're guiding progress? Well, that means more than one for sure. We're not just
Hmm.
doing, what does it mean lasting results? Well, it's the thing that I've been saying to clients in person for my whole career, that it's going to take more than one, but not more than 10 to 12 on average, and not forever, but you need to do a series. And so then it became this process of like, well, how, okay, we probably need a new website finally because our old website's crap, and who do I hire, and so I had to be like, how do I solve this? And then running into the exact problem we talked about earlier of like, I'm the bottleneck. So that
Hmm.
was when I first hired a marketing agency, and I had watched all these YouTube videos with Ben Heath of Heath Media on YouTube about Facebook and YouTube marketing. And I called them up thinking I was going to join their mentor program to learn how to do it myself. And then I
Oh.
just like was like, no, actually, I'll hire you guys. And so they run our meta ads and only our meta ads. And they've been fabulous. And they got enough of a campaign, and I had to invest and lose money for months to test and
Hmm.
figure out until we got to a predictably reliable, like 6 to 8 ROI ad campaign, that we could just leave on and spend every day and solve the demand side of the equation, right?
Hmm.
And then it was like, okay, now we need a new website to send people to because we're losing our ROI on bad conversion. And that was when, well, okay, I could fix this myself like I always do, or, and I got into all these, I happened upon Studio Scaler completely by accident, but they pitched the idea to me, and I was like, I really like struggled with it. And then I was like, you know what? No, let's do it. And honestly, you know, I spend almost 4 grand a month with them,
Hmm.
but, and,
Just to
the
manage the
first,
website.
no, no, it would be the the rebrand, the website, the CRM integration of all that, building all these
Hmm.
products. They're building a new widget for us for booking
Hmm.
through MindBody, and it's like larger than just the website. It's literally like
Okay.
everything but our meta ads, honestly.
Hmm.
Email marketing, they build templates, they're visual, it's like it's a big vast array. And we took on a 12-month contract with them minimum, but honestly I think they'll just be there forever. But again, it was so, well, I need help and I can't do it myself because otherwise this is going to take a year, and I need it to be less than that.
Hmm.
And I'm happy I did. I'm very happy I did, because like the results that we've gotten with that new website, and again, it's not just a new website. Like, if you, and I don't want to give away their secrets either, but if you like went under
Hmm.
the hood and saw what differentiates it, it's, you know, there's a reason that Google scooped it up and just like started spitting it out like candy in their
Hmm.
AI overviews. And it's partly because of the work I did on the depth of the content, but it's also in the way that it's laid out and the way that it's structured and the way it all links together and the way that client pathways are mapped out by Laura, who's an amazing UX designer and visual designer as well. And so that was again, so it's like, what was the problem? I have no idea. Now I know the problem. I don't know how to solve it. Now I think I know how to solve it. I don't know how to solve it with. Then I picked out who to solve it with, and then I learned all sorts of new problems that I need. And so we just kept going like this until the website launched right at Black Friday last year with our new and then I was like, oh, but packages don't work. Can we remodel this based on Alex Hormozzi's like, money models, principles, and things, and
Hmm.
so on and so forth. It's like until now, finally, we're at a point where, and then it was like, but our comp model sucks, and can we? And we're not hiring the right people. Can we fix that? It was like one by one, I had to butt my head against all these problems for the last 12 months, and
Yeah.
now finally all of that is actually like synergistically working so that our trend line is like that now.
So
And
you
you know,
really the next 12 to 18 months is going to be a big turning point for sure then, because you're
yeah,
really going to start seeing the results of all the work that you put in from the past year or before that. And
yeah.
it's kind of, I'm sure, probably kind of hard to foresee into that future and, know what to be excited for. I mean, I think I'd kind of be excited for the uncertainty of what's to come.
Well, yes, but also what's weird is like if you had told me, okay, you're going to do all that, the normal answer of like what's going to happen with your SEO, for instance, is it's going to take 6 to 12 months, but you'll see results. And like I said somewhere earlier, it wound up taking like 8 weeks before and then by 12 weeks, we were ranking nationally on things, which was
Hmm.
crazy talk. Like nobody, I would never have bet money that that was possible, let alone that that would have happened that quickly. And that it's like it's so weird. It's like you're here because of that. Like nobody, like I wasn't getting media opportunities prior to this
Hmm.
new website launch, but now people are, like we're
People can
getting
find you.
all
Yeah.
these. Yeah, exactly. Like I got asked to do a webinar for the AMTA in California, which
Hmm.
is AMTA is the American Massage Therapy Association. So their California chapter found
Hmm.
me through that and asked me to teach something. Like there's just this is weird, but I got asked to be an expert witness on a trial because of
Whoa.
this website. Like I'd never, yeah, like weirdo stuff, but a cool
Yeah.
stuff. And so there's a lot of
Yeah.
unknown about. I have no idea what's coming, but the other known, which is kind of crazy, is like I don't know that our current trajectory will stay at the peak, the steep angle it's at, but I absolutely know it's not going to flatten. And so it's very nice to be able to celebrate the idea that like break even. I think we met break even and we're above it finally after COVID because COVID
Hmm.
we were there. 2019 we were healthy and profitable, and then it's really taken that long for us to get back there. But now that we're above there and our heads above water again, it's like, um, you know, I think, okay, I'm gonna do the thing that I should be doing for myself all along, which is something I identified with my life coach years ago, which is I don't know how to celebrate my wins. I get right onto the new problem. And so 18 months from now, if you ask me if have you taken a more than 9 day vacation? Have you actually taken a 2 to 3 week vacation? And if I tell you no, I want you to fly here and slap me because that will have been like the proof that I finally reached a point where I don't have to have my foot on the gas the whole time,
Hmm.
and that I've actually like we could go visit Japan like we've always wanted to. Not
Hmm.
that I couldn't do that or make that work, but it's like, well, I will finally build all of the structure underneath me that runs itself, that I could not be there and it wouldn't collapse, which would be amazing.
Yeah. 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 That is, that's awesome. That is awesome. I struggle with that as well, with, I guess, kind of giving grace to myself, and celebrating my wins and that kind of stuff. It's tricky, man, especially when you're, business minded. You want to just go, 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 go. You want to get to the next level. It is really hard to sit back and, I think looking back on where you were and realizing where you're at now has been the most powerful thing for me because I forget sometimes where I came from. I'm personally like very ADD brain. Like I have to follow a schedule or else I won't know what I'm doing for the day for the most part.
Same.
So for me to think back a year sometimes and realize where I was at, it just doesn't happen unless I consciously do it. And I always have to remind myself to do that kind of stuff. So it's so awesome that you said it. It's funny going throughout this, there's been so many similarities that I just pick up on stuff. Like you learn so
Hmm.
much about yourself going into these kind of things.
Totally.
Yeah. But David, this has been like, genuinely valuable. I have really enjoyed this conversation, and I love the way that you
Thank you.
think
You too.
about what it means to build a method that kind of
Hmm.
outlasts any single practice or practitioner, and actually like understanding that systematic kind of approach. Because I think this is the kind of perspective that kind of people need to hear. A lot of people don't really think like it, and you just kind of need more exposure to the information. But before we close, where can people go to learn more about you,
Oh,
Bodyworks,
sure.
and follow your work?
So the website we keep talking about is bodyworksdw.com, and the DW is my initials, David Weintraub. So bodyworksdw.com. And if you're in New York City, right, we have two locations, the Financial District in Midtown West, and as we've talked about, we have 20 great practitioners. Depending on what you're dealing with, any one of them could probably help you, but our website does have ways to filter your condition and match with the right therapist. And so that's the how of how you can find out more about us. I'll sort of close. We talked a lot about the idea of like getting support and like getting other people to build for you, which is absolutely the only way to move forward and grow anything. Um, that being said, there were big parts of the website where I had to be the one, and even above and beyond AI helping out or anything like that. And there's this whole section called pains and conditions where there's every page is massage for thoracic outlet syndrome, or massage for knee replacement recovery, or massage for cervical pain, or massage for plantar fasciitis, all these different conditions that I've had tons of experience working on, that I was stuff I specialize in, massage for TMJ, massage, migraines, all these different pages, and those are super in depth. And I did the college freshman thing at finals of like busting out for like 3 weeks straight before Black Friday, writing every single one of those pages. So I'm very proud of them. I also think that they're the reason that Google's just soaked up the information and is now showing it all over AI overviews for any of these
Hmm.
conditions, or nationally for them in some ways, because they're very well sourced and they're science based, and they link out to real studies and real science, to show that like that's the basis of how we do and what we do. We're not like just saying what we do is magic. It's actually all science based. So that's where you can find out, where we are, and learn more, and then come work with us. Because obviously, if you're dealing with any of these conditions and you are struggling to find relief, give us a shot. We might be able to help you.
There we go. Well, thank you again, David, for joining us. It has been a pleasure. And for anyone listening, if this conversation gave you anything insightful that you can apply this week, share it with somebody that's building something real. I think, more people need to hear real stories of what it actually takes to become, quote unquote successful. Everybody's got a different
Hmm.
definition, but I think you get the point. But I'm Noah Tomes. This has been The Functional Operator. Thank you for joining us.